Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She closed the front door like she was coming back. That's the part that keeps playing in my head. No slam, no drama, just a quiet click, like she planned to return with a carton of milk and a lighter soul. But she didn't. Fallon didn't even look at me when she left. She just said, 7 days. No texts, no calls. Just let me breathe. I stood there in socks with a Tupperware of leftover chili in my hands. Like that was going to solve anything. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just said, okay. Because when someone you love asks to be without you, the begging part feels like crawling. And I was already flat on my back emotionally, so what was the point? I didn't realize then that the break she asked for was already broken. We were broken. I just hadn't heard the snap yet. I'll be honest. Day 1 was embarrassing. I vacuumed the entire house, including under the fridge. As if Fallon was going to come home and say, "Wow, Nolan, you even got the dust behind the water filter. You really do care." Day 2, I walked past our bedroom and stopped cold. The bed still smelled like her coconut shampoo. I sat down and cried into a pillow. Not because I missed her, but because I didn't know why she needed space, and that silence is worse than a fight. By day 3, I convinced myself she was at her sister's. That's what she told me. That it wasn't another man, and she just needed clarity. But the thing about silence is it gets loud, deafening. And Fallon's social media, usually busy with quotes like, "Healing isn't linear," and "Know your worth," went dead quiet. So I started scrolling, then snooping, then spiraling. Fallon didn't know I still had access to her cloud backup. And listen, I know I'm the villain now, right? Invading her privacy? But something in me said, check. The photos were recent. A selfie in a robe. A wine glass. A man's hairy arm around her shoulder. Different hotel rooms. Different beds. Same guy. Same smirk on her face. Day 4, I threw up. Day 5, I called her sister. She was never there. "I thought she was with you," her sister said. That's when something twisted in my chest. Day 6, I found a woman named Rosalind. Not a friend. A stranger. But the man in Fallon's photos? He had his arm around her in a tagged Facebook picture from last year. A family cookout. Smiles. Wedding bands. I messaged Rosalind with shaking hands. I said, "I think your husband is spending this week with my wife." Her response? 3 words. "Let's ruin this." We planned everything. Day 7, 6:43 p.m. The door unlocked. Fallon walked in. 10. Hair curled. She was humming. But she stopped when she saw Rosalind sitting on our couch. She stopped dead when I stood up holding her hotel receipts and a photo album labeled "Break Week." Rosalind didn't knock. She just walked in like she lived there. Her hair was damp from the rain and tied in one of those no-nonsense buns. Like she hadn't even hesitated about showing up. She glanced around our living room, took in the framed photo of me and Fallon from our anniversary in Vermont, and muttered, "She has good taste. In decor, not men." I didn't laugh. My hands were still shaking. We didn't say much for the first few minutes. Just sat. 2 people tied together by betrayal, bound by the same awful silence. I had made coffee out of habit, offered her some, and she said no. "I'm not here to sip tea like this is cute," she said. "I'm here to make sure she sees what she broke." Her words had weight. More weight than anything I'd said to Fallon in the last year. Rosalind pulled out a manila folder. I blinked. She had receipts, literal ones. Hotel bookings, albums, screenshots of shared calendars between her husband and my wife. "They used a burner email," she explained. "But he was stupid. Forgot to delete the autofill." I flipped through the pages. Fallon was in 3 of the booking confirmations. Her full name, her favorite travel credit card, her initials scribbled in a spa waiver. The same spa she said she visited on a self-care day. She had even used our joint account. A couple's massage with someone who wasn't me. It stung in the kind of way that doesn't leave a bruise you can see. Just this hollow ringing in the chest. Rosalind tapped her fingers on the table, impatient. "When's she supposed to come back?" "Tonight, around 7. She looked at the clock. 6:56 p.m. I nearly stopped breathing. I asked Rosalind if she was sure she wanted to be here. She didn't even blink. I want to see her face when she walks in thinking no one knows. And right then, headlights swept across the curtains. Her car. Fallon. The front door creaked open. She was humming, like this was any other evening. She had a fresh tan, a plastic bag of overpriced skincare, and that infuriating bounce in her walk like she'd just done yoga on a beach somewhere with no guilt. Then she saw us. She froze mid-step, like someone had hit pause on her body but not her mind. Her eyes darted between me and Rosalind like she couldn't quite register whether this was a dream or a trap. I stood up slowly. Rosalind didn't move. No one spoke. Fallon's smile vanished. Her voice cracked first. "Nolan, what is this?" Rosalind was the one who answered. "You said you needed a break. We're just here to return the favor." Fallon blinked. Her lip trembled. I wish I could say I felt strong in that moment. Brave. Righteous. But honestly, I felt sick. I felt like I was standing inside someone else's life. And I hadn't even told her yet what I found in her suitcase. Fallon stared at Rosalind like she was a ghost from a nightmare she hadn't planned for. The tan on her face seemed to fade in real time. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something clever, something that would explain all of this away, but no sound came out. Just one blink, then another. She placed the bag of skincare down slowly, like it was evidence. I didn't say anything. I just walked over to the couch and sat down again, hands folded in front of me like a disappointed father at a parent-teacher conference. I think I even sighed, not to be dramatic, but because my chest felt too tight to breathe through. Rosalind was standing now, calm, cold, a woman who had already cried her tears before she stepped foot in our house. She nodded toward the small red suitcase in Fallon's hand. "You packed light," Rosalind said. "Not much of a life in that bag, huh?" Fallon looked like she wanted to throw it at the wall. I spoke up finally. My voice was soft, broken, almost childlike. "I went through your suitcase before you came in. I wasn't going to, but then I thought, what else don't I know?" Fallon's eyes widened. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, maybe even accuse me of violating her privacy, but I held up my hand. "Don't. Just don't." Inside the suitcase, I had found a charger, a half-eaten protein bar, some receipts from a high-end steakhouse, and, most painfully, a handwritten note, folded neatly inside her makeup bag. I pulled it from my hoodie pocket and laid it on the coffee table. Rosalind tilted her head, reading it upside down. Fallon stayed frozen. It read, "Can't wait until next month. 1 week wasn't enough. I don't want to go back to sleep next to a ghost. I want to wake up beside someone who actually sees me." It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was hers. Fallon took a step forward. "You don't understand." "No," I cut in. "I don't. That's the problem. I've been walking around this house for years thinking we were just tired, thinking maybe we needed a vacation, not a full-on replacement." Rosalind crossed her arms. "And you," she said, looking at Fallon like she was examining roadkill. "You lied to him with the same mouth you used to kiss my husband. How do you even sleep?" Fallon finally snapped, voice sharp like broken glass. "You think this is all me? You think I just woke up one day and decided I was done? Do you know what it's like living with someone who disappears into himself every time something goes wrong? Nolan never fights, never pushes back. It's like being married to a shadow." I flinched. It wasn't even untrue. I am a shadow. I've always been the background character in my own marriage. But hearing it like that, thrown at me in front of someone else, was a whole new kind of humiliation. "I asked you to talk to me," I muttered, "for years. And I asked you to see me," she fired back. The room was boiling with silence again. No one knew what to say next. Fallon sat down on the arm of the chair like her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. I looked at her and asked the only question that mattered. "Is it over? You and him?" Fallon didn't answer right away. She blinked hard, bit her lip, and whispered, "I don't know." That was all I needed. I stood up. "Then I'll make it easy for you." Rosalind followed me out the front door. Fallon didn't call after me. Not even once. The front door shut behind us without a sound. But in my head, it slammed like a gunshot. Rosalind didn't speak. I didn't either. We just walked. Down the driveway, past Fallon's car. Into the dark where porch lights looked like interrogation lamps. I don't even know where we were going. I think I just needed the cold night air to feel something again. My body was still moving, but inside I was hollow, buzzing like a broken light bulb that flickers even after it's dead. Rosalind finally broke the silence. "You okay?" I nodded. Lied. "Yeah." "You're not." "No, I'm not." She stopped walking. I didn't. I heard her boots crunch behind me, then stop. I turned around. She was staring up at the sky like it owed her an explanation. "You ever wonder if they want to be caught?" she asked. I blinked. "What?" She looked back at me. "My husband. Your wife. All this crap, they get sloppy. Careless. Booking hotels on shared cards. Leaving receipts. Not deleting texts. It's like they want us to know but don't want to say it." I didn't know how to answer that, but she was right. I kept thinking about that folded note in Fallon's makeup bag. It was practically a confession. Why not rip it up? Why not hide it better? Maybe some part of her wanted me to know so she wouldn't have to pretend anymore. We ended up at a gas station. I bought a pack of gum I didn't want and a bottle of water I didn't open. We sat on a cold bench out front like two strangers waiting for a bus that wasn't coming. Rosalind finally asked, "So what now?" That question hit harder than I thought it would. What now? Do I go back to that house? Sleep in the bed where she dreamed of someone else? Pretend I'm okay while she figures things out? Wait for more silence and half-truths and fake smiles? I don't know, I said honestly. I think I need to not be there. Not tonight. Rosalind nodded like she'd already decided the same thing for herself. "My friend has a spare room," she said. She offered. "You can crash on the couch if you want. No weird vibes. Just space." It sounded pathetic how fast I said yes. But I didn't care. We drove in silence. Her car smelled like peppermint and old receipts. I stared out the window, watching the familiar turn into unfamiliar. I wasn't crying anymore. But that didn't mean I was fine. It just meant the shock had taken over. At her friend's place, she handed me a blanket and said, "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to feel worse." She was right, because the next morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls from Fallon. No messages, no apologies, just a single text at the very end. "Where are you?" I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know how to answer, but because part of me wanted to pretend she still cared. But the truth was, she didn't care where I was. She just didn't like that I'd stopped being predictable. And that scared her more than anything. I didn't reply to her text. I just stared at it like it was written in some dead language. "Where are you?" Not, "I'm sorry," or "Can we talk?" Just 4 words that were more about her losing control than about caring where I actually was. It felt like I was a misplaced object. Like she'd put me on a shelf and came back a week later wondering who moved it. Rosalind was already up, sitting at the small kitchen table in her friend's apartment. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept either, but she still managed a quiet good morning before sliding over a mug of coffee. "She texted too?" she asked, like it was routine now. I nodded. "Yeah, just asked where I was." Rosalind rolled her eyes. "Of course she did." I took a sip of the coffee. It was too strong, but I didn't care. I needed something to ground me. The couch had given me a crick in my neck, but waking up in a space where Fallon had never breathed felt like the first real moment of peace I'd had in months. "You going back?" Rosalind asked. I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to, just to see what her face looked like in the morning after everything. But the other part, the part one barely recognized, was done. It was tired of trying to fix things that only I had been holding together. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started typing. Not to Fallon, to my lawyer. Yeah. I'd never said the word divorce out loud before that day. Never let it form fully in my head. I always thought we'd fix things. Or maybe I was just scared to admit we were broken in the first place. But after everything, the lies, the silence, that note in her makeup bag. I couldn't pretend anymore. I booked an appointment for Monday. No hesitation. No explanation to her. Just action. That same morning, I went back to the house. Not to talk, not to listen, but to pack. I gave myself 30 minutes. I grabbed clothes, my laptop, old photos that still meant something to me. I left the rest. I didn't touch the bedroom. Didn't open her drawers. Didn't even look at the framed photo of us from our second anniversary trip to Portland. I just walked past it like it belonged to two other people. Fallon wasn't there. The house was empty, but not quiet. It buzzed with the weight of everything unspoken. The kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for you to break first. Right before I left, I did one more thing. I left a note, just a simple piece of paper on the kitchen counter. It said, "You asked for space. I gave it to you. Now I'm giving myself some, too." That was it. No name, no goodbye, just space. The one thing she claimed to want and the last thing I ever expected to finally take for myself. I walked out the door and didn't look back. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wait for her to call. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel like the ghost in my own marriage. I felt like a man finally stepping into the light. I thought she'd show up angry, maybe even furious. That's how Fallon always handled things when control slipped from her hands. She'd raise her voice, shift blame, demand explanations she had no right to ask for. I imagined her storming into Rosalind's friend's apartment like some broken goddess, demanding answers, weaving excuses, pretending her betrayal was a reaction, not a decision. I braced for that, but what I got was worse. She didn't come at all. 2 full days passed without a single knock at the door. No call, no follow-up to her. "Where are you?" Message. At first, I thought she was just letting me simmer, expecting me to crawl back and beg for a conversation. But by the 3rd morning, when my phone still hadn't lit up with her name, a deeper, darker thought crept in. What if she was relieved I left? I didn't know whether to be crushed or grateful. Maybe both. Rosalind didn't push. She gave me space but occasionally tossed in a sarcastic comment or two to remind me I was still alive. "You know," she said while eating cold cereal from a mug, "this is the part in the movie where the cheating spouse shows up sobbing and swearing they were confused. You sure yours isn't rehearsing somewhere?" "Maybe," I replied. "Or maybe she's with him." The words tasted bitter, but I said them out loud because I needed to hear the ugliness. I needed to stop sugarcoating the truth. Fallon didn't just make a mistake. She built a double life and handed me the silence while she filled her weekends with someone else's attention. That afternoon, I did something unexpected. I returned to the house. Not because I missed it. Not even because I wanted closure. But because I had this feeling, this nagging sense that Fallon had left behind more than just her perfume and fake apologies. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe closure. Maybe confirmation. Maybe some last piece of evidence that I wasn't insane for finally walking away. When I opened the front door, the lights were on. I hadn't left them that way. Shoes in the entryway that weren't mine. Her coat on the banister. Fallon was home. I heard her upstairs. Pacing. Talking. Then quiet. I moved through the hallway like a thief in my own house. And then I stopped. On the kitchen counter was her phone. Unlocked. Open to a message thread. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. At the top was a contact saved as C. Red heart below were messages sent just an hour ago. "He left. Not sure if he's coming back. I didn't think it'd go this far. I miss you already." That was enough. I walked out before she even noticed I'd been there. I didn't take anything. Didn't make a sound. I let the note I wrote days ago remain where it was. Let her keep the silence she'd asked for. But this time she could talk to it alone. It happened on a Thursday. Rain had been threatening all day, but it hadn't fallen yet, just lingered in the sky like it was waiting for permission. I was sitting in Rosalind's friend's apartment, scrolling through rental listings I couldn't afford and job boards I didn't have the energy to care about. My life was in that strange place between collapse and rebuild. Too early to call it healing, too late to pretend I could fix what had been broken. That's when she knocked. Not a text, not a call. Fallon showed up in person. Rosalind opened the door before I could react. Fallon didn't say hello. She didn't ask to come in. She just stood there, clutching the sleeves of her coat, like she was trying to keep herself from falling apart. "Can I talk to Nolan?" she asked, voice low and unfamiliar. Rosalind turned to me, but I didn't move. I just stared at Fallon. She looked different. Not guilty, not even sad. Just tired. Her hair was messy, her eyes dull. This wasn't the woman who skipped into our house 7 days after her break, humming with tan lines and expensive skincare. This version of her looked like she'd run out of justifications. "I need to say some things," she added. "I didn't come to fight." That last line made Rosalind arch an eyebrow, but she stepped aside. Fallon entered slowly, like she wasn't sure she was welcome, which, to be fair, she wasn't. I didn't offer her a seat. She didn't ask. "I read your note," she began. "The one on the counter." I nodded. I deserved that, and more. Another nod. She exhaled hard, folding her arms. "I didn't expect you to leave. I thought you'd wait. Like always." That part hurt more than I'll admit. Because she was right. That had been my role for years, the one who waited while she figured herself out. I waited through cold nights, long silences, deflected affection. I waited for her to come around. But not anymore. She swallowed, looked down at the floor, then back at me. "I don't know what I want anymore." I laughed. Not a good laugh. Not even a bitter one. Just hollow. "I know exactly what I want," I told her. "And it's not someone who plays musical chairs with my sanity every time they're bored." Fallon's eyes started to water. She looked like she wanted to reach for me but didn't dare. "It didn't mean nothing," she whispered. "But it also wasn't everything." "So what was it?" I asked. "A vacation? A test run? Did you flip a coin that morning before you asked for space?" "I felt invisible," she said. I stood. That was enough. "I was right there," I snapped. "Every day. Every hour. Every dumb thing you needed, I was there. Maybe I wasn't flashy or unpredictable. Maybe I didn't make you feel wild. But I was real. And you threw that away for a week of fantasy." She didn't argue. She just cried. "You want to know the worst part?" I added. "I wanted to fight for us. I would have forgiven almost anything. But not the lie. Not the way you stood in front of me and asked for space, while packing for someone else's bed." Fallon wiped her eyes. "I still love you." But this time I didn't believe her. I nodded toward the door. "Then let me go. That's the only loving thing left to do." She left quietly, like she did the first time. But this time I didn't stay behind. It's been 3 months. Long enough for the house to sell. Long enough for her last text. I just wanted clarity. To stop echoing in my head. Long enough to stop waking up in a cold sweat wondering if I overreacted. Spoiler, I didn't. I'm not going to pretend I turned my life around overnight. This isn't one of those magical rebound stories where I lost 30 pounds, got a 6-figure job, and found someone new by the 3rd week. I didn't. What I found was quieter, but maybe more powerful. I found myself. It happened slowly, through small things, making my own space, setting boundaries, relearning what silence without manipulation feels like, cooking for one and actually enjoying it, sleeping through the night without waiting for a door to open, laughing again, not often but genuinely, and without guilt. And Rosalind, she became more than just someone I shared heartbreak with. We're not a couple, not yet, maybe not ever, but we're friends who understand each other in a way I never understood Fallon. We check in, we heal. Sometimes we just sit together in total silence, and it feels like enough. I saw Fallon once since that night. Just once. She passed me in the parking lot of a grocery store, slowed when she saw me, opened her mouth to speak. But I didn't stop. Not out of anger. Not out of pride. Because I didn't need her words anymore. I had mine. If she ever came back, truly came back, not with guilt or excuses, but just honesty, I think I'd still thank her. Not for the betrayal, but for forcing me to stop being a ghost in my own life. She asked for space, and in the end, so did I. But the difference? I used mine to finally grow. Now it's your turn. What's a moment in history that changed everything with one decision? Let us know in the comments. You're watching Reddit Confessions, where endings don't always break you. Sometimes they rebuild you. Subscribe for more stories just like this one. Until next time, take care of your heart.